The photo came from an old friend in Maui. My husband, dressed in a white shirt, raising a cocktail under a Hawaiian sunset. A woman half my age leaned into him, her hand resting where my wedding vows once lived. My jaw locked. My left shoulder went numb, though I was still leaning on my crutch. I felt like I was watching myself in a mirror, but my reflection wasn't there. How do you know your husband isn't booking an anniversary trip with someone else while you're in the hospital, cheating husband? That's the phrase I never thought would apply to mine. Her name was Florence Hazel Whitmore, 65 years old, retired, a woman of discipline, of quiet habits, and of deeply rooted trust. She had lived in Ashtabula, Ohio, her whole life, the kind of place where every porch light still meant something and neighbors still waved. Florence had worked for nearly 30 years as head of communications at a regional soda bottling company. She was known for her steady hands and calm voice, especially in crisis. After retirement, she spent her time writing, tending her marigolds, and contributing columns to the town newsletter. Her life was measured in routine: morning walks, afternoon tea, a call from her daughter every Sunday night. Her husband, Robert Whitmore, was 68, a retired high school teacher, amateur gardener, and, until recently, her trusted partner of over 3 decades. He handled the finances, clipped coupons like a badge of honor, and always reminded her when a bill was due. Florence never questioned it. That was his department. He liked to say, "You kept the words, I'll keep the numbers." And she let him. Their home was modest, white-paneled, with blue shutters and a swing that creaked when the wind changed. Florence loved it. The kitchen held the scent of her mother's cast-iron skillet. The hallway bore grooves from moving furniture too many times. The walls still carried echoes of bedtime stories. Then, in late winter, she slipped on the back steps. Rainwater pooled in a crooked brick near the porch. Her foot twisted, bone cracked. At the hospital, they told her she would need surgery and at least a week of immobility. Robert came to visit on the first day. He brought a crossword book and a few oranges. He kissed her on the forehead, smiled, and said, "I might be out of touch for a couple of days. Alumni gathering in Columbus. You rest. Flo." She didn't think twice. On the 4th day, while Florence was adjusting the back of her hospital gown, her phone vibrated. A message from Susan, an old college roommate she hadn't spoken to in months. Susan had retired to Maui years ago and now managed a boutique hotel near Lahaina. The message read, "I think this is your husband. I'm so sorry if I'm wrong." Attached were 2 photos and a short video. Florence opened the first image. Robert, in a white linen shirt, smiling broadly, holding a cocktail garnished with a slice of pineapple and a pink umbrella. Beside him was a younger woman, not more than 35, pressing her cheek against his shoulder. Her hand rested on his chest like she had done it 100 times before. The second image showed them under a sign, "Aloha, anniversary, getaway." The video, Robert laughing. The woman kissing his cheek, a bellhop wheeling luggage behind them. One suitcase bearing a name tag, Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore. Florence froze. The room blurred at the edges. Her body didn't move, but her world shifted. Her chest tightened, not with pain, but with hollowness, like someone had scooped the air out of her lungs and filled them with seawater. Outside her room, a nurse called for someone down the hallway. The sound was muffled, distant, as if coming through a tunnel. Florence couldn't tell whether it was morning or night. She gripped the bed rail, her nails pressing crescent moons into her palm. A steady beeping from the IV machine ticked like a metronome beside her. She pulled the IV out without thinking. The sting barely registered. She stood slowly leaning on the aluminum crutch they had given her. Then came the tears. Heavy, childlike, not from sorrow, from erasure. She wandered into the hallway, past a lunch cart and an open supply closet. Her hospital gown rustled softly as she moved. No one stopped her. No one knew what to say. A 65-year-old woman with a broken leg and a broken truth. That night, she whispered to the ceiling tiles above her bed. 30 years. He picked a beach to erase me. The next day, the world still spun, but Florence sat upright. She stared out the window. Below, a maintenance man swept rainwater from the sidewalk. Her tea had gone cold, untouched. She thought about the way Robert had smiled in that video, the way his hand lingered on that woman's lower back, the way her own anniversary card still sat unwritten in her purse. This wasn't just infidelity. It was a family betrayal story, a rewriting of every holiday, every inside joke, every Sunday crossword. He had not just cheated on her, he had replaced her in the story they built together. Florence knew what this was. She had read about it, but never thought it would wear her husband's face. It was a grey divorce, a late-life split dressed in muted colours and old bank statements. And it was happening to her. She would not let it finish her. She would not go quietly, not after what she had seen in that video, not after what Susan had dared to send her, with kindness and regret in equal measure. Florence inhaled, held it, released it. Her hands stopped shaking. Her eyes dried slowly. Her voice did not come back yet, but her clarity did. Cheating husband. The term sounded sterile, almost clinical. But now, it had a face. And she had a plan. She allowed herself to grieve for 2 days. Then, on the third morning, Florence sat at her kitchen table with her leg in a cast and opened her laptop. The pain in her body was nothing compared to what she felt inside, but she knew one thing: doing nothing would only make her smaller. She printed every joint bank statement from the past 2 years. Her younger sister, a certified accountant, spent 2 afternoons reviewing them. The pattern was clear: flights, boutique hotel stays, jewelry purchases, spa treatments, dinner charges at restaurants in cities Florence had never set foot in. Every transaction tied back to the same woman, and all of it was paid from accounts they once called ours, or rather, accounts funded by her early retirement package and years of disciplined saving. Florence packed a suitcase and left the house she had shared with Robert for over 20 years. She needed space. She needed air. She needed not to smell his shaving cream in the morning. When Robert called and texted that weekend, she let the phone ring. He emailed her 3 times. She did not read them. Instead, she took her documents and sat down with a divorce attorney in Cleveland, calm, measured. She explained everything and laid out the proof. The attorney confirmed what Florence had suspected: Robert's actions qualified as misuse of marital funds. That alone could shift the court's view of asset division under Ohio's equitable distribution laws. A brief meeting was arranged in the attorney's office. Robert sat across from her. His eyes were dull. His voice cracked. He said he was sorry, that he didn't mean for things to go that far. But Florence no longer looked for meaning in his words. Her silence told him everything. With the attorney's help, Florence filed a motion requesting a revised asset division. She also requested a court order to audit Robert's personal bank accounts to trace all questionable expenses. 3 months later, the preliminary ruling arrived. The judge found Robert had willfully used marital funds for a sustained extramarital relationship. He was ordered to reimburse 50% of the misused expenses. In addition, his portion of the remaining assets was reduced to account for the breach of financial trust. The judgment noted his behavior as a factor that negatively impacted his equity claims. Florence opened her own bank account, one that carried only her name. For the first time in over 30 years, she knew exactly how much she had. No more joint statements, no more blind trust, no more waiting for someone else to explain her own future. She had once dreamed of a calm, shared retirement with Robert, a porch swing, travel, reading in silence together. But that vision had vanished, and now she saw clearly her retirement dreams had never been mutual, only hers. This was more than cheating. This was financial infidelity, the quiet kind, the legal kind, the kind that empties your accounts while smiling across the dinner table. Florence realized she had confused kindness with safety, stability with partnership. She thought that long years would guarantee loyalty, but love, without clarity, is a gamble. She knew Robert had failed her, but she also saw her own silence in the mirror. 3 decades of not asking, of letting things slide, of signing papers without reading them. She had slowly surrendered her financial visibility, trusting that shared history meant shared values. He had taken advantage of that. And now, she was taking it back. Florence didn't return to the house. Not once. She left the keys on the kitchen counter, told her lawyer to handle the rest, and checked into a furnished apartment near the local university. It was on the 3rd floor. No elevator. Her leg still ached from the fracture, but the climb felt like a small rebellion. She donated half her clothes, boxed the rest. She bought a desk used, oak, with scratch marks on the drawer and set it by the window. That's where she kept her new bank folder. 1 account, 1 name, hers. The legal process continued. She showed up to every meeting prepared, quiet but unshakable. She refused to allow anger to speak for her. She let the documents do that. The emails, the credit card receipts, the photos, the spreadsheet her sister helped her build, every dollar tracked, every date matched with a withdrawal. Robert's legal team attempted to settle. Florence declined. She wanted it on the record. Not for vengeance, for truth. At the final hearing, the judge affirmed her claim. The division of property was recalculated. Robert was required to sell certain investments to reimburse his misuse of funds. The court acknowledged the emotional and financial impact of his actions. Florence didn't flinch when the verdict was read. She exhaled. Her palms remained still in her lap. After that, she made 3 important moves. First, she updated her will. Everything now clearly named, no ambiguity, no room for misdirection. She left her estate to her daughter and a local organization supporting women over 60. Second, she signed up for a financial literacy course at the library. Once a week, every Thursday morning. She sat in the front row, asked questions, took notes in a spiral notebook that had sunflowers on the cover. Third, she joined a support group, not for divorce, for reinvention. Women who had restarted after betrayal, abandonment, death, or silence. They met in a coffee shop that smelled of cinnamon and old stories. No one interrupted. They nodded a lot. Sometimes they laughed. Once, Florence laughed so hard she cried. That was the first time since the hospital. She began writing again. Not journalism, just pages about mornings, about trust, about her garden, about the time she realized she hadn't checked Robert's voicemail in weeks and felt absolutely nothing. She didn't try to date. That wasn't her goal. Her goal was to live without hiding behind someone else's name, someone else's choices. One morning, she stood in the mirror and said it out loud. "My name is Florence Hazel Whitmore. I am no longer married to a cheating husband." She smiled after she said it, because it sounded like the beginning of something, not the end.